Welcome back. You're watching The Money Show with me, Kavita Thapliyal. HDFC Pension Plan has come up with a very interesting survey, which is first of its kind in its own way on understanding consumer outlook towards retirement and their familiarity, appeal and consideration that leads to the NPS Preference Index, which can be tracked over time. Let's discuss more on this. With me, I have Sriram Iyer, CEO, HDFC Pension Management Company. Sriram, good evening and welcome to the show. And a very interesting survey that's been launched. Just give me the highlights as to, and help me understanding. It's a survey, but it is also a kind of an index which can be tracked, and depending on consumer behavior and their attributes towards NPS and the concept of retirement, how have you clubbed it into this particular product, if I can call it?
Good evening, Kavita. Great to be in your show. I think the concept of this index and this whole study emanated a few months back, given the fact that we wanted to, of course, commemorate 10 years of our existence as a pension fund company. As you will know, we completed 10 years in the month of August, and there is also the 1st of October, which is celebrated as the NPS Divas, and therefore we wanted to work on creating, and there is not enough of there is only anecdotal evidence as of now in terms of awareness around NPS and familiarity around NPS. So we wanted to actually conduct a survey which will assess attitudes of individuals towards retirement as one of the milestones that people would have, and how do they look at NPS as a tool or a vehicle in this journey of creating a retirement plan for themselves. So that was the objective behind the survey. Just to quickly give you some more update on how we went about doing it. This was done by a global research firm called Ipsos. We covered over 12 cities across tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 cities. This was a combination of salaried and self-employed, and of course, male and female as well. It essentially seeks to do two things, as I said earlier. Attitude towards retirement and understanding of NPS as a product. These are the two things that this survey sought to measure, sought to assess, and of course, as a measurement of NPS preference, we came up with what is called as an NPS Preference Index, and I will talk about it in detail slightly later.
All right, so I think let's start discussing the details, because this preference index, NPS preference index, actually depends on a lot of factors. What are those factors, and how have you aligned these factors with the study?
Yeah, so essentially there are three factors that we were seeking to assess as a part of the survey. The first factor was familiarity, which means that as an individual, how familiar are you with this product called NPS or National Pension System? By the way, I must clarify that this universe of people that were surveyed, they were all NPS aware, which meant that they knew that there was a product called NPS. But when it came to familiarity with the product, by which you mean, do you understand the features and benefits? Do you understand the terms and conditions? That was one thing that was one factor that we wanted to measure. The second factor that we wanted to measure was appeal of the product, which means that how attractive do you think this product is compared to other products that are available to you? So this was the second factor that we wanted to measure, which is appeal. The third factor that we wanted to measure was consideration. So if you were familiar, if you found it appealing, what is the likelihood of you continuing to invest if you're already an NPS investor or a subscriber in NPS? Or what is the likelihood that you will start the journey of investing in NPS in case you haven't NPS subscriber, you're not an NPS subscriber as of now. So these are the three factors that we sought to measure. In fact, the score across these three factors was, almost similar. We saw a score of between 53 and 55 across these three factors, and the weighted average score of these three factors threw up a number of 54. So as we speak, the index has thrown up a number of 54. Of course, what it does mean is that one out of every two people surveyed, right, these NPS aware subscribers who were surveyed, 1 out of 2 people said that they preferred to invest in NPS as a product, as far as retirement planning is concerned. So that is and of course, what will happen is, over a period of time on a standalone basis, it is obviously because we don't have any historical data. This is the first time that such a survey has been attempted by any participant. And as times progress, and we intend doing this at regular frequencies, and therefore we will be also able to assess how this is progressing in terms of understanding, in terms of the improvement in the preference index on account of the efforts that the industry is putting in, be it HDFC Pension or the other participants in the industry, who are putting in a lot of efforts to ensure that we are able to enhance awareness of this absolutely fantastic retirement corpus creation tool.
Sriram, also because I think it's a pan-India survey or a study that's been conducted, any specific any region-specific data that you might want to highlight when it comes to NPS as a retirement product or understanding towards retirement?
Actually, Kavita, what came out very clearly was that the various things that we measured, be it with respect to retirement or with respect to NPS, there is a fair degree of similarity across regions. So while there are some regions which have shown a marginally higher preference index compared to the others, they are all in the same ballpark. It is not as if X region is at 40 and the other region is at 60. They are all in the ballpark between 51 and 56. So to that extent, this preference index hasn't really shown any regional disparity. In terms of familiarity, of course, between government and non-government, people that were surveyed, clearly government employees, given the fact that government employees contribute towards NPS as well as the government contributes towards their NPS kitty, and that's been going on for central government's employees since 2004, the familiarity and the preference index amongst government employees was slightly higher. But as I said, it is not a very statistically meaningful difference between regions or between, across tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities or regions. It is fairly uniform in terms of all the three factors.
Also, Sriram, when we talk about retirement product, we have to consider a lot of other aspects, the tax treatment, the capital appreciation, the kind of flexibility that you might want, in order to have a regular income from this product. So talking about these parameters, were the people involved in the sample size questioned, studied? What did actually you draw out of all this?
So I think, I want to step back and look at the retirement part of the survey as well, right? Two things came up very clearly. Number one, retirement planning is not amongst the top 3 priorities for individuals that were surveyed, which is a little concerning because retirement planning should be something that you should start thinking about as early as possible, because as we all know, the power of compounding does its magic. The earlier you start, the more is the corpus that you can create. That's number one, right? So it isn't a part of the top 3 priorities as far as at least these survey respondents are concerned. That's number one. Number two, the estimation in terms of the amount of money that you would require at the time of retirement was severely understated. In fact, the average number is around 1.3 crores and the range is between 1.2 and 1.8 crores. So there is a very large number of people who think that around 1.2, 1.3 crores is sufficient enough for them to continue to sort of lead a reasonably sort of comfortable life post-retirement as well. As we all know, this is far from the truth, especially for this survey base where the average household income was, upwards of 7 lakhs. Most of them were in the region of 15 and 20 lakhs. Even for this cohort, the number that came up was surprisingly very, very low. Well, I think what we tried to do, therefore, was not to really ask whether what is it about NPS that you like. Of course, we did ask about triggers and barriers for NPS. Of course, what appeals to customers as far as NPS is concerned is the fact that it is a government product. It has got a government flavor to it. It is a product which is, also offers tax benefits. And also given the fact that there is a fair bit of, and one of the things that we saw, and which was actually a little surprising, is that a number of people who said this was the trigger for us for investment in NPS was the fact that their family had experienced NPS and they had recommended it to them. So therefore, and of course, returns were also a part that, were a factor that played a part in people signing up for NPS. But these were some of the factors that had led to people investing in NPS. Of course, I think awareness and the fact that, there is a fair number of people who express their lack of understanding about the product as a barrier. And of course, the fact that, there is this perception that illiquidity is something that is perceived as a barrier towards investing in NPS. So we try to measure the triggers and the barriers for investing in NPS amongst the people that were surveyed, Kavita.
Last question, and with that we'll wrap up this discussion. Sriram, how exactly is this study and survey going to help you being a pension company?
I think it is going to be incredibly helpful because of the fact that the kind of findings that it has thrown up, and I'm not saying that one survey is going to sort of help us. I mean, and there are a number of things that happen, right? So a number of surveys that keep happening from time to time. This was a survey that is seeking to, of course, address two topics, which is one is approach to or attitude towards retirement. The other is, of course, understanding the effectiveness of NPS as a product or the preference for NPS as a product, and therefore the NPS Preference Index. So the kind of takeaways that we have from the survey or the kind of findings that we have from the survey will help us to fine-tune our approach, both in the form of communication, the kind of communication that we make. It also helps us to understand what are the gaps that are there in the customer's mind with respect to retirement planning, and that is in some sense is going to help us better communicate to this community, put to use a number of tools that are available that can potentially be used by these individuals to arrive at the most appropriate retirement corpus. So I think there are a number of things that will come up as action steps out of the fact that this survey is, as I said, thrown up a number of areas which the things like 1.3 crores being the average, being the corpus that is required, right? I mean, that's a seriously understated number. And I think importance of and the impact of inflation over long periods of time, the impact of, starting early, and, these are all things that have come up as gaps. And this is something that will help us to address better through our communication, through our trainings, through our awareness sessions. As you know, we do a number of awareness sessions amongst subscribers towards NPS and retirement planning. It will help us in that aspect.
All right, Sriram, thank you so much for being on the show today and helping our viewers with all the details of this survey. Thank you.
Entirely my pleasure. Thank you so much.